I'm often asked for my recommendations of good gardens to visit in the UK. There are thousands of brilliant gardens in both the UK and the Republic of Ireland. They're both very gardeny places. And because we're also geographically close, people visiting from abroad will often want to see several countries at once. Of course, I know the gardens in the southeast of England, my area, best. So I've asked a range of other gardening YouTubers, podcasters and social media influencers to recommend the gardens that they think are special near them. And that'll give you some great new podcasts, YouTube channels and social media profiles to follow, view or listen to as well. I'll put links to the gardens and also to the podcasters, YouTubers and Instagrammers in the description below. And most of the gardens are open all year round. Some are only open from, say, April to September, but they'll all be open to the public at least 2 days a week. So do check opening times before you go. Some of the gardens in this are well-known gardens and some are hidden gems. And I'm going to start with a very well-known garden, which is RHS Wisley in Surrey. And it really is a garden that has everything. It combines tradition and innovation very well. And the most recent innovation is the Udolph landscape by the glass houses. This is a wonderfully immersive naturalistic planting created under the direction of Pete Udolph himself. RHS Wisley is also a day out for everyone. It has herbaceous borders, it has ponds, it has lakes, it has a rock garden, it has several national plant collections, children's play areas, lovely places to walk and sit, and of course a great gift shop and a restaurant and a cafe. And if you're visiting the north of England, then don't miss RHS Bridgewater, which is near Manchester, because that is also an amazingly contemporary garden, which is set in a very historic location. It's their newest garden, definitely one not to be missed. Now on to a smaller garden, but it could hardly be called a hidden gem because it's a garden that is very much shaping the way gardening goes in the future, all around the world, and that's Great Dixter in Sussex. Great Dixter has always been a garden that challenged the norm from the days when the late great Christopher Lloyd got rid of his mother's rose garden and planted an exotic garden instead. Now, Great Dixter champions biodiversity, and under Fergus Garrett it's had biodiversity audits for around the last 15 years. And amazingly, it's discovered that the most biodiverse parts of the garden are the borders, the barn garden and the long border. But of course, as Fergus Garrett says, it doesn't mean that the borders are better than the other parts of the garden, the woodlands, the meadows and everything else. It just means that having borders and lots of flowers really helps biodiversity. For more about this, look at my video, A Garden That Looks Gorgeous and Champions Biodiversity, which I'll put in the description below. But the basic principle is that Fergus thinks you should have lots of different gardens. If you want a garden with a wonderful herbaceous border and short grass, go for it. If you want to do longer grass and trees and the two of you are side by side, that's perfect. So he doesn't say one size fits all. He says have the garden you want, but do certain things to encourage biodiversity within that. And now to more of a local hidden gem, Doddington Place Gardens. Doddington Place Gardens is a classic English country house garden, but one that marries tradition with moving ahead with innovation. It has beautiful borders, a sunk garden, a rockery, ponds, woodland, an azalea and rhododendron walk. It's even got a stumpery, and you do need to see a stumpery in this day and age. A few years ago it was shortlisted for Historic Houses Garden of the Year, and it's really a pleasure to visit. And now let's go to Suffolk to see the recommendations of Aid Sellers, who is an award-winning writer, presenter and filmmaker. Aid's channel, The Good Life, charts his gardening journey and interviews inspiring people in the gardening world.
Hello, I'm Aid Sellers and I have the YouTube page, The Good Life Gardener. And I've been asked to talk about what garden I like to visit. Well, I'm based out in Suffolk, and for me, time and time again, it has to be the Beth Chatto Plants and Gardens. I've gone there several times, and every time I go there, I come away full of ideas and inspiration. This was a garden or gardens created by Beth Chatto. She started it in 1960 on 7.5 acres of what could be described as wasteland, brambles, parched gravel. And over the years, she's created different gardens. She's taken planting schemes that work for different environment. So you might have heard that term, right plant for right place. That's Beth Chatto. These ecological plants work in all these different environments. And every time I go, I'm inspired. I come away with ideas. I come away with planting ideas that I can implement in my own garden. So whether you have a gravel garden, whether you have a small garden, whether you've got heavy soil, you've got ideas in those gardens that Beth Chatto has created that you can bring home. Sometimes when I go to various show gardens, big, grand, formal gardens, I don't get that inspiration, I don't get that excitement because I can't implement it as a gardener in my growing space. I can't take those ideas to other gardeners, to other gardens. But with Beth Chatto, time and time again, when I go there, I have ideas. I have planting schemes I think can work for my clients, can work in this garden, and it keeps giving. It's a garden that just keeps giving. Every time I go, I try and go at a different entrance point, and it doesn't matter which way I go, the garden just pulls you in. It unravels, you know, its different planting schemes. It shows you its, you know, the environment it's set in, the birds you can hear. You know, it's fantastic. Unfortunately, Beth Chatto did pass away a few years ago, but the gardens are in safe hands. The managing director is her granddaughter, Julia Balton, and she has protected that legacy whilst keeping one eye on the future. So in a changing climate, that garden has been protected, that garden is thriving, that garden will just go and go for many years to come. So if you have the chance, I urge you, please go to the Beth Chatto Gardens.
Now let's head north to Jane of Jane's Growing Garden, which is based around her organic kitchen garden plot, and she's going to recommend a garden in Staffordshire. It's Jane here at Jane's Growing Garden, and today I want to show you around one of my favourite gardens here at Trentham. I think the difference with Trentham Gardens here in Staffordshire is, despite the fact that the estate is steeped in 400 years worth of history, the planting scheme that we see today in its latest incarnation has only been developed over the last 20 years or so, and with that it has taken into account all the challenges that we as gardeners face today. The planting itself is very much being done with nature in mind and using plants that are going to be resilient for many years to come. So, for example, at the top end of the gardens, we have drought-resistant plants such as our salvias, such as our roses, whereas at the bottom we have more moisture-loving plants, and they tend to congregate around the lake where the water table is higher. But it's not just the Italian gardens with their formal structure and relaxed planting style that are of interest here. There's also the trellis walk, which is clad in scented climbers. And then there's the rivers of grass. Then we move on to the floral labyrinth with its 120 metre borders and over 400 types of different perennial. I simply have not got enough time to tell you everything else there is to discover at Trentham. There's a woodland walk, there's a lake behind you developed by Capability Brown himself, there's even a monkey forest on the doorstep. So if you are in the area, I would really encourage you to come along and see the whole new exciting development that is going on here at Trentham Gardens. Now let's head over to Lee Burkill of the Garden Ninja YouTube channel.
Hi, my name's Lee Burkill, also known as the Garden Ninja, and you may recognise me from TV's Garden Rescue, but way before then I've had my own YouTube channel helping loads of people around the globe make the gardens better through design and practical gardening tips. Now my favourite garden is actually miles away from where I live, and it's up in Scotland on the southwest coast, and that's Logan Botanical Gardens. And the reason why I love it so much is that it offers an incredibly diverse range of different tropical plants, all here in the UK, and you wouldn't expect to see them there. And the reason why you can grow all those plants up in Logan is because it's got the Gulf Stream running through it, meaning that the air is warm and they can grow some really beautiful specimens of plants. One of my favourite parts is called the Gunnera Avenue, where they've got this huge collection of massive, almost prehistoric Gunnera. Now I know they're an invasive species now and have been technically banned, but it's a fab place to go and see them. And around the garden they've got all sorts of other areas such as South America, Chile and Australia, so you can see plants that you wouldn't normally get to see in the UK growing quite happily there. The other beauty is it's got this gorgeous formal pond in the very centre with a cafe next to it. So if you get a bit hot and bothered and you need refreshments, it's a great place to stop. I also love it because it's unexpected. When you're walking around, you're seeing things like echiums, fuchsias and tender salvias that, again, you just would not see here in the UK. So if you want to go and see a garden that will blow your mind and give you loads of ideas of what you could grow in temperate gardens, but Logan Botanics is one of my secret hidden garden treasures that I love to visit for a weekend to feel like I'm on holiday. Do make sure you check out my YouTube channel where I've got hundreds more garden guides, hints and tips. Back to Alexandria.
Staying in Scotland, let's hear from the three grow bags. They're three sisters who live in Scotland, Normandy and Sussex, and their blog, The Three Grow Bags, has gardening tips and tales of sisterly horticultural rivalry.
Hello, it's Caroline here. I'm one of three sisters who write the Three Grow Bags gardening blog. Now, there are so many great gardens in Scotland. There's obviously most of the major cities have their own botanical gardens. There's Atterdale. There's so many, and all the gardens attached to castles such as Cawdor or Crassus are very good. But I wanted to recommend, I've got three in mind for you, and I think they just have a little bit of personal history and a little bit of a unique quality that makes them standout gardens. Now, first up is Branklyn Garden in the city of Perth, now owned by the National Trust for Scotland, but it was created by John and Dorothy Renton in the 1920s, and their rather wonderful arts and crafts house is still at the centre of this very compact 2-acre site. The Rentons were avid plant hunters, international plant hunters, so you'll find specimens that you rarely see elsewhere, with an alpine collection to die for. For real plant nerds like my sister Laura, there are 3 national plant collections at Branklyn, and do try to arrange to make your visit in the spring when their hepaticas and their mecanopsis are really something else. Best of all, Branklyn is within walking distance of the city centre of Perth, and what a wonderful sense of peace you get sitting on its terrace, having a cup of tea and looking out over this garden of rare treasures. Now from Perth, we're heading east to Cambo Garden near St Andrews in Fife. Family owned for generations, and it really is worth a visit any time of the year. Informally planted and with a rather sort of thrillingly fast-flowing stream going through its walled garden, it is very well known for its snowdrop festival in late winter. Now that's not only because it's got over 300 different varieties of snowdrops, the winter flowering shrubs and spring bulbs are absolutely beautiful too. Now in May, you've got a lilac walk. I think they've got over 30 different types of lilacs. I mean, that is also really worth seeing. And in summer, the herbaceous borders have some of your well-known favourites and some less well-known perennials growing in them. I would say, though, autumn is probably what Cambo is best known for, and that's because of its approach to prairie planting. You probably won't get a better example of prairie planting in Scotland than at Cambo, with those late summer perennials and grasses, just absolutely beautiful, stunning spectacle. So do think, whenever else you go to Cambo, definitely try and go there in the late summer, early autumn. Now for our final garden, we're pushing north again and on the other side of the coast. And here we'll find Inverewe Garden just north of Gairnoch. Created over 100 years ago by Osgood Mackenzie in the middle of what was just a barren wilderness. Inverewe is also now owned by the National Trust for Scotland. And although it sits in the same latitude as Hudson Bay or Moscow, because of that Gulf Stream coming down the west coast, it has a really unique microclimate. It's probably best known for its rhododendrons. It has a fantastic collection from China, India, Nepal, and these, although they're amazing in the spring, in sort of from April through to June, apparently there is one in flower every day of the year. So any time is a good time to visit Inverewe. And as well as the rhododendrons, it has these amazing prehistoric Wollemi pines, some great western cedars. It also has a beautiful walled garden which stretches around the shoreline of the bay in front. It's a really dramatic setting. Now, your entry fee also allows you to tour Inverewe House, owned by Osgood Mackenzie's daughter Mary Sawyer, and I can really recommend that you do this. She was quite a girl, and the house is really interesting to look round. Now, I hope these 3 brief overviews have encouraged you to come and do some garden visiting in Scotland. Although I'm the only one of the 3 grow bags who lives in Scotland, I have visited all 3 of these gardens with my sisters, and many more besides. If you also come to Scotland to look at gardens, you'll find that its climate here is as much a horticultural boost as it is a blow.
Liz Zorab of By the Farm's award-winning YouTube channel is based in Wales and is about learning how to create a beautiful and useful garden, growing fruit and vegetables to feed your family all year round with how-to gardening and homesteading videos.
Hello, I'm at what is possibly my most favourite garden in the whole world. I'm Liz Zorab, and this is Aberglasney Gardens. Aberglasney Gardens are referred to in the plural, I think, because there are a whole series of gardens here. It's a 10-acre site with a series of different gardens laid out in different ways. Very formally laid out gardens. This very beautiful ornamental walled garden, the cloister garden, and an ornamental veg garden. And downhill from where I'm standing, there's a beautiful ornamental pond and the all-important cafe. There's a woodland garden further down the hill, and then you can take a path that leads you up and around and behind me. And there's an Asiatic garden, and the views from the very top of the hill are amazing. You look all across the gardens, across the valley, and through to the hills on the other side. Aberglasney Gardens are open 364 days a year, so they're just closed for Christmas Day. And for most of the year, I try to get here at least once a month. And then during the summer month, I'm here every fortnight or even every week, because each visit brings new interest, new plants in flower, new planting combinations. And I find it totally inspirational and incredibly exciting.
Ramona Jones's Monologue YouTube channel shares stories of their life in their cottage and garden in southwest England. And there are literally millions of people following her delightful cottagecore posts on Instagram, Facebook and TikTok.
Hi, my name's Mona and welcome to our cottage garden in Somerset. I'm a content creator, photographer and writer, and I run the social media channels Monologue. You can follow us on our YouTube channel for monthly tours around our cottage garden, and I'm on all of the other social platforms under the same handle. 2 of my favourite gardens are Iford Manor and Great Chalfield Manor, and thankfully they're situated quite near one another if you want to visit them both in one afternoon. Iford Manor is an Italian-style garden that's landscaped into the side of a valley, and it's such a beautiful garden. It's also got a really amazing cafe as well. My favourite time of year to visit Iford Manor is in the spring when the wisteria is in bloom, and it really, really is something. The plants are hundreds of years old and they have beautiful purple flowers. I don't think I've seen a wisteria garden quite that amazing anywhere else. There's also a beautiful woodland behind the garden, so if you do manage to visit in spring, you might catch the wild garlic in flower, carpeting the woodland floor as well. Another of my favourite gardens is Great Chalfield Manor, and Great Chalfield is an absolutely stunning house and it's framed really wonderfully with the gardens. My favourite part of their garden is the rose garden. They use modern cultivars of roses that repeat flower so that there's an endless summer display of roses. It really is beautiful. And one of the most interesting things about the location is that it's framed by a moat, so the wider landscape is quite beautiful as well. The other thing I really love about this garden are the yew hedges, which are clipped to look like abstract houses. They kind of look like the shape of jellies, and they are absolutely huge and you can walk through the middle of them. They are clipped very precisely and they're quite amazing to look at and walk through. So it's a garden that I highly recommend.
Rosie Hardy of the Rosie Hardy Gardening channel needs no introduction to Middlesized Garden viewers. She's probably one of the most knowledgeable plantswomen in the UK, and her YouTube channel, Rosie Hardy Gardening, is full of plant growing information.
Hello, I'm Rosie Hardy. Now, here in North Hampshire, I have 2 gardens that I really love to go and visit. The first one is Longstock Park Water Gardens. There is nothing more calming than going to somewhere where there are huge expanses of beautiful water that has been slightly diverted from the River Tess, so it's beautiful clear chalk stream, and it just meanders through this amazing place. Beautiful big mature trees, lovely shrubs, all sorts of interest throughout the year. And it is just a place when it's a hot day to go and be calm and cool. And you can just walk through. There are little islands you can walk onto, little bridges, and you just meander around. It is a super place to go and visit. My second garden to go and visit is Houghton Lodge. Now, this is a wonderful old lodge. The building itself is fantastic and the family still live there. So you are walking through what is basically their garden. You walk in where there is a fantastic cafe, so that's always got to be a plus, and into an old walled garden with beautiful old fruit, and they're trying to keep it all tidy and using as green possible techniques and older techniques to train the fruit. And then you meander out into a beautiful setting that looks down over the River Test again, this beautiful chalk stream that we have here in North Hampshire. And there are rolling bits of countryside which have all been mown, and you go down the hill into wonderful areas. There's a new bit that's been built which has got a moon gate and a bridge, and that is their oriental piece. So it's worth a good stroll around and a lovely coffee at the end.
Greenfingered City Boy describes himself as a complete amateur, but he did win a gold for his show garden at BBC Gardeners World Live. He says that his channel, Greenfingered City Boy, which is YouTube, Instagram and TikTok, is about gardening being for everyone, and that it's completely idiot-proof.
Hi guys, I'm Adam Marshall, aka the Greenfingered City Boy, and today I'm going to show you Compton Acres in Poole and tell you why you should pay it a visit. Compton Acres is a Grade 2 listed garden which was created in 1920 by Thomas William Simpson, a margarine entrepreneur. It is located in Poole, overlooking Poole Harbour, which is near Bournemouth, a place where I have gone a lot growing up as my grandparents lived there. Now obviously the gardens here are absolutely stunning, but there are two standout reasons why I would recommend you to go and pay this place a visit. And the first one is the sections. There is literally something around every corner, and it will show you how you can have different sections, different themes within your garden, and the fact that there are different themes means there is something for everyone here. So whether you like formal or informal, there's something for you here. Whether you like gardening or you don't like gardening, there's something for you here. And that's the other thing that I love about this garden. I first came here when I wasn't actually that into gardening, and I still loved being here. It is a really fun space, especially as you get into the Japanese area and you've got the stepping stones and the fish, and everything just looks incredible. So you could come here with family that aren't necessarily into gardening, and they would enjoy this place just as much as what you will. But obviously, going back, taking this footage for you now, having learnt more about plants, I got even more from this place, knowing all the different plants and stuff like that. So it was an absolute amazing time here once again. As you can see, my son enjoyed it just as much as I did. I am as much of a kid as him, so I love the fish, he loves the fish, and look at this. This is the money maker. You have to come and see this in person. It is even better in person. So if you're ever in the area, make sure you give it a visit. Alexandra, thank you for having me, and I look forward to seeing the other gardens.
Hello there, I'm Mike Palmer, editor and presenter of the Mike the Gardener Gardening podcast, now celebrating its 8th series. The podcast covers all things gardening. We chat to plant experts, gardening experts, garden designers, garden writers and authors, and of course we have the ever popular Slot from the Plot, in which we take a deep dive into all things allotmenteering. So that's the Mike the Gardener Gardening podcast, available on all podcast platforms. Now I would like to talk to you about two of my favourite gardens. If, like me, you're a fan of ornamental grasses, and who isn't, then you just have to visit Knoll Gardens near Wimborne in Dorset, owned by grass guru and author Neil Lucas. Knoll Gardens is planted exquisitely with stunning grasses set in a beautiful wildlife setting. Now my second choice is Holme For Gardens in Wareham, also in Dorset, so you could do the two in one day quite easily. Holme For Gardens is a series of beautiful garden rooms. There's a grass amphitheatre, a wildlife pond and a butterfly meadow, and it's constantly evolving. And I'm a regular visitor there, so who knows, if you visit, you might just see me walking around. Bye bye for now.
In Somerset, Georgie of Common Flower & Flowers YouTube channel is all about growing cut flowers, whether it's for your house or even as a small business.
Well, hello there, Alexandra, and all your YouTube friends. Nice to meet you. My name's Georgie Newby. I'm a flower farmer and florist based here in sunny Somerset, just near fashionable Bruton and up-and-coming Wincanton. And I garden a 7-acre plot, which is half flower farm and half wildflowers, orchards, woodland. I mean, obviously not big woodland, but, trees. And you'd be very welcome to my channel to have a look and see what we get up to here. And Alexandra has asked me to make some recommendations for people to go and visit gardens. And I'll show you around a little bit and why I think it's such a great garden. And then I'm going to go to the garden at Hauser Wirth. Both of these places are so contrasting to what we do here, growing flowers in long rows for sale, but also contrasting each other and really are fantastic to visit. So off we go. So there's lots to see here. It's a great garden in winter for the snowdrops. Beautiful walled garden. And look, you can bring dogs on leads, which I think is nice in a garden if you're visiting. So it's really a garden made on the edge of a village. Here's the village, this is the pub. And then you walk down here and there is a medieval cross, and this is sort of the beginning of this wonderful expanse of garden which is full of follies and buildings. There's a little church if you want to get married, but there's somewhere else where you can go if you want to get married, and that's where I'm going to show you. I've done lots of weddings there over the years, supplying flowers from our fields just a couple of miles away. And it's a tiny little wedding spot. So this is your little walk in your beautiful outfit. And you come around a corner and there is this built ruin. It's a folly. And look. You climb up, and I've just gone over a bridge, over a road, and you tuck your way through here and walk on up through the woods. Secretly there is a gate up here, and you can be driven up here in your finery. You don't have to climb that quite steep hill, but you can. And then, can you see it? There is the Temple of Apollo, where you can be married. And the temple is a quiet spot to sit and take in that spectacular view. So that's my first garden, and I guess I like it because it's so very ungardeny compared to what my garden is. And I love the expanse of green and the trees, and the fact that even on one of the busiest days of the year, here I am all on my own. Because it's so big, there's room for everybody. And now we're going to ping over to Hauser Wirth and see the Adolf Garden there. So this is a very different place. It's an art gallery just outside Bruton. Lots of places to eat, farm shop, all sorts, and a lovely garden. You can stay in the farmhouse over there. And let's go and look at the garden. And the garden has been made in the last about 10 years at the bottom of a north-facing slope on thick Somerset clay. And I'm astonished every time. They had to spend thousands and thousands and thousands on drainage. And it's a garden designed by Piet Oudolf, and which I'm sure I'm pronouncing wrong. And I absolutely love it. And I come up here quite often just to have a little mooch. It's free to get in. It's not enormous. Look, you can see it all from here. But the planting, massed planting of colour and movement. And I absolutely love it. And I've done weddings here too over the years. You can get married in the pavilion at the top, which gives a sort of full stop to the garden. I hope you've enjoyed my recommendations and might pop over to my YouTube channel, Come On Farm Flowers, to see a bit more about what we do not very far from here.
And London has a number of remarkable gardens, but podcaster Sally Flatman has got a hidden gem that I'm quite sure you won't have heard of.
My name is Sally Flatman, and I'm the presenter and producer of a podcast called Our Plant Stories. I was a BBC radio producer for many years, and this combines my love of audio and plants. So we always start with a plant story. It could be a peony that someone's mother grew, it could be a mint plant that reminds someone of their home in Kiev, or it could be a monkey puzzle tree that came with the purchase of a house. And then I find someone who shares the passion for that plant, and we end by learning how to grow it. The garden I'd like to recommend is the Inner Temple Garden in London. I was privileged to be a volunteer there for a couple of years, and I don't think it matters what time of year you visit, there will be something to delight. So in spring, there will be pots of tulips beside all the seating areas, and then the alliums start to come out in amongst the ferns, and they are stunning. In summer, the high border is just a riot of colour. I wasn't so keen on the leaf picking in the autumn. There are a lot of plane trees, but as you move towards December, they decorate for Christmas and the garden is just magical. Look out for the meadows. Sean Harkin and his amazing gardening team have been extending those over the years, and I love them. The garden is alive with insects, and that's important to them, and they celebrate that too. I think if you walk along the embankment, you wouldn't actually know this garden is there. It's a real hidden gem, but it is well worth the search.
Over to Northern Ireland, where the garden that everyone keeps telling me I must visit is Rowallane in County Down. It's been described as a garden that's carved out of the surrounding landscape with a mixture of formal or informal gardens. And now to the Republic of Ireland to hear from two top gardening YouTubers, Niall Gardens and Rachel from Douenza.
Hello, I'm Rachel from Douenza Garden and the accompanying YouTube channel, Gardening at Douenza. I'm based in Wexford in Southern Ireland, and today I want to share with you my three favourite Irish gardens. Jimmy Blake's Huntingbrook Gardens in County Wicklow has got to be featured in any conversation about the best Irish gardens. It's composed of 5 acres of contemporary exotic gardens and 15 acres of woodland and valley. Jimmy is a self-confessed plant nerd, growing the most unusual and exotic of plants. He continuously experiments, and the garden can change quite radically from one year to the next, making each visit a truly fresh experience. June Blake's garden is located next to Jimmy's but ranks in its own right. Spread over 3 acres, the garden wraps around a handsome Victorian stone cottage. Designed in a grid with leading lines from the house, many of the beds are raised so that as you wander, you feel enclosed by the soft, painterly planting. Stylish, contemporary elements such as the reflective pool add to the experience. But in my opinion, June's colour palette always steals the show. Ardan is the creation of Nuala and Connell and is in a coastal hillside location. This jewel of a small garden is composed of several garden rooms, each with different plants and its own atmosphere. The herbaceous borders snake from the entrance and are colourfully planted with individual perennials rather than conventional drifts of plants. Dotted with artist Connell's sculptures, Ardan is food for the soul. All three of these beautiful gardens are featured on my channel in videos that include interviews with the owners. I believe Alexandra has linked to these videos in the description below. For anyone wishing to learn more about Irish gardens, I'd like to mention 3 resources. The first is the RHSI website. It features prestigious gardens, large and small, within Ireland. And breaking news, Inverewe Garden will feature soon as a partner garden. Secondly, The Open Gardens of Ireland by Shirley Lanigan was published this year by Butterslip Press, and it lists the 427 gardens that open to the public here. And finally, if just in the Dublin area, do check out the Dublin Garden Trail website. It has many choice gardens. Thank you very much, Alexandra, for including me in your collab. I just love your videos. So factual, well-researched and topical. Bye!
Hey everyone, it's Niall from Niall Gardens. I cannot wait to share with you what I was going to say is one of my favourite gardens, but I think it might be my favourite garden. This is the walled garden at Farmleigh House. It's not massively showy, but it is just perfect. So come with me and let's have a look around. The garden is nestled in one tiny corner of Phoenix Park, which is a massive open public park in the centre of Dublin. It's free to come and visit, which can't be said for a lot of gardens. And on a beautiful sunny September day like this, just look behind me at the big perennial long borders. No matter what time of year you come, there's something to look at. So will we go and have a look? Sometimes you look at a garden and you think this is perfection because it's so big, it's so perfect, it's on such a huge scale. But actually what is lovely about here is, although it's obviously a big garden, it feels homely and it feels imperfect and it feels loose and a little bit clashy. And actually it just feels like the kind of garden I would love to have. I truly do come here all year round, and there's something lovely about having a garden that is the perfect size where you can just see how it evolves all the way through the seasons. And check this out, this magnificent old greenhouse. Now this greenhouse isn't accessible to the public, but it is just amazing to look at, and it adds that really old world character and charm to this garden. I'm obsessed with this thing. And even on an afternoon like this, where the sun is shining and it's free to get in, there's always very few people, which means you're always going to find a nice, comfy old bench in a little secluded corner like this to just sit, take in the garden, enjoy the flowers that are planted right next to you, and just have a moment to yourself. I think in so many gardens that are open to the public, that's actually quite hard to find. And if you come down here, you're more than likely to find me sitting in one of these seats, having exactly that, just a nice, quiet moment to myself.
One thing that I always recommend to people in terms of garden visiting is to go to the National Garden Scheme. Sometimes these will be quite big gardens and other times they're private gardens you wouldn't otherwise see. And one of the things I can really recommend are their group openings. And if you'd like to see what a group opening for the NGS is like, then don't miss this video coming up next of 5 glorious English country gardens. And thank you for watching. Goodbye.